know what we can tolerate because you haven't finished the job telling me how much you've created. So where is it? You see, where is Olam Haba? It's not
under construction.
I choose to think that although that shot is true. The shot is when Chazal say Ayam Le'Wata, what do they mean? They could meant what you're saying. But I think that they could have meant what I'm saying, because what you're saying is true, what I said is true. So, Shad, which one did they intend? That's not, but the point is, they could have intended this too, because Olam Haba does not exist yet. It doesn't, because the Tikkun of Nam Tzusha does not exist. You know what I mean? The rule is still, the line is still moving along.
Because what he does,
the line is not stopped.
He takes any subject that he deals with, no matter what it is, whether it's hashkafa, whether it's harman.
Well, the way I'm giving the explanation, it shows you how powerfully you're connected with Olam Haba.
What is going on?
Determining it.
And then
It shows you what an incredible yad you have. I don't know if you realize the British Mamash sits and listens to what you can't move. I mean, Kaviochol. With the Midas Hadin, which Hanokas HaMishpat says that the whole Pamalia Shemala cannot budge an order of an inch until you tell them where to go.
And he's very
responsible for your own activity.
That's right. They cannot move without you. That's what it's not a joke when the Buddha says the Tikkun of Nam Tzusha is not a joke.
I don't know.
You see what I'm saying? When the Buddha said that I have to create a system where you earn it because of the internal difficulties around the sufa between the self, you see, between the I and the it, between the self, and the fact that and the whole thing. So the Buddha does it that way, which means that you are mamash responsible for. You're responsible for the nature of existence itself. You're responsible for the nature of this existence, and you're responsible for the nature of future existence. And neither of these things exist yet. You see, as far as we're concerned,
1707 and
the next instance now is non-existent.
Was a young man with a
How does the Buddha know it?
When he was ready, he
cannot know. Obviously, someone who relates to that
when
knowledge.
his father said he was a well-to-do man, he was essentially somewhat financially independent.
Do we all understand this?
And he had a Rebbe, Shaya Basan, who was the...
Now I want to go into the next section. Is there, basically, you understand what it is? I mean, the ideas are so... Once you get the basic idea, you understand what it is. It illustrates what Bechira really is relative to time. You see the connection between time, what existence in time is, and what does it mean that Bechira exists in the world. What happens when you have Bechira and you don't have Bechira? You see? What's the difference in our spores? I mean, the connection of these ideas.
Described over there the experience of having a Malach HaMagid. He's to learn with Magid.
There are separate ideas I want to know. One idea is the concept of what is the connection between existence to time. That has nothing to do with Bechira. Whether there's Bechira not as a side point.
And he describes over there. I mean,
that's the question. What is the nature of existence to time? That existence goes through time, you see? And how does the Buddha know the future? That's one thing. The second thing is, if we say that the world has Bechira, it means it compounds the problem even more. It makes it more serious. Because what it says essentially is that the Buddhism cannot in any way know his own plan, because that plan depends on you. Basically, that's what the Tikkun of Nam Tzusha is. You have to go over it again. It's like, Now, that's one thing. So the shaila is, we asked, how does the Buddha know the future? We see therefore is much more complicated than we thought. Okay, let's go to the thing. The question we started off with, the question of Yadi and Bechira. What's the question between Yadi and Bechira? Because the instant question is this, and this is really the question. How can the Buddha know something and still allow free will? That's the question, right? Mm-hmm. Why is that a question? Yeah, but what is the question? What is the question? Why should his knowledge determine what you're going to do? So he knows about it. Like someone said here, knowledge is not causative. Doesn't determine what you're going to do. Because I know what you're going to do doesn't make you do that thing.
Yeah, but his knowledge is.
Why?
That might be by instant evidence, right? You could have been wrong too.
Yeah. I know, right? No, but why? Why? Yeah.
It can't be mentioned what's wrong with this.
What?
Has in its existence, besides the essences of everything that will be, the fact that they take place at a time, there's a component of existence. That we say comes from Hashem, and since that already exists now, a certain component of everything that takes place.
Yeah, you're on it. You're on it. What you understand what I'm saying? The Buddhism is existence. So therefore, his knowledge is existence. So if he knows what you're going to do, you must do it. You see, because it is. It must be.
But the only reason he knows it is because you will decide to do it.
What? Yeah, but if the Buddhism is existence itself, his knowledge is existence. So the person cannot go against that.
When the person is doing that,
You
disprove what you said before.
Right.
What?
He didn't cause it. He's just using it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We're saying that the Buddhism's knowledge is causative. Because the Buddhism's idea is mitzias, it's existence.
But that came after the Bechira.
What?
You're the after the Bechira.
So he knows
what you said before.
No, he knows what you're going to do.
But only as a result of the Bechira. So what about the Bechira? The knowledge which is
Well, hold on one second. What we're saying here is that the Buddhism knows what you're going to do. Buddhism knows what you're going to do a year from now. Now, why is that an infringement on your?
Because from Yerushalayim, I have the power of determining my own action.
Yeah. So therefore, why is that a kasha then? Why?
Well, we had the kasha. We don't know how to do other knows.
That's one kasha. Let's say he knows some way. The first question, well, how does he know? Let's ignore that question. He knows.
Okay.
He knows. He doesn't know. It doesn't exist yet. He knows. He knows what you're going to do. But that's also a problem. The very fact that he knows means you cannot do what you want to do. Why?
No,
But
not necessarily.
You can end up doing what you
Not
want to do
necessarily.
anyway.
We just said we don't know how he knows, and just the same way we don't know how he knows, the same way his knowledge doesn't infringe on our behavior.
Yeah, that's the answer to it. That's it. You know what I want to do? Because I want you to understand the question over here. The question is that if the Buddhism knows something, it's not just he knows something. It means that knowledge is reality itself. If he knows that 1 year from now it must happen because it is existence, you know what I mean? Even though it hasn't happened yet, but since in some way it is reality in that sense, it's got to be. So you can't be free. You cannot free yourself of what he knows, because what he knows is and must be. So how can you be free? You understand what what Bechir means? Bechir means an incredible. Bechir means that you determine it. You determine means that free will means that your will is not connected to any reality, and therefore it cannot be predicted or known, because there's no shaykhs. What you're about to do 1 minute from now, if it's truly free, it means it's totally unpredictable.
Correct.
You see what I'm saying? Which means there's an absolute chance, 50-50 either way. There is no reality which can indicate which direction you're going to go, and there's no way you can do it. You see what I'm saying? That's what it means. It's totally free. So if we're saying that he knows what you're going to do, it means it's not totally free.
No.
Why? Because if what he knows is existence itself, which means in some way,
You're bound
existence,
by that.
your knowledge is bound in some level of existence.
No, but that existence is in the future. Since we have no shaykhs to the future,
It doesn't matter. Wherever that existence is, the point is it must be in the future. What it must be. So therefore, how are you free?
okay. Just like
It's your decision that started the whole
I get a feeling that most guys, this is not clear.
no. I mean, I don't understand what.
I don't see what your question. I mean, I see what you're saying.
I don't see the
I don't see the problem.
Yeah, but the kasha is answered by what we said before 5 minutes ago,
Which is?
that just like we don't understand how he's in time, and then it's the same way. His knowledge doesn't infringe.
No, that's not
the answer to that question anymore. No. Not if you. That's why we.
So I don't
That question. When we asked the question, how does the Buddhism know the future? The answer was we do not know, because we don't know the nature of his reality, and we don't know how his reality relates to our non-existent reality. That's one. Okay. Now this has a different answer. Because the question is different. The question here is not how the Buddhism knows what's going to go on.
And now
the
that
question
he
is
does know.
Now that he does know, right, and his knowledge is existence itself, then you cannot deviate from what he knows. You see.
What's the problem?
So there is no free will.
But you did what the only reason he knows is because you wanted to do that, right?
Not because you wanted to do that. You haven't done it yet. That's not there yet. You haven't done
Why
it yet.
does he know that you're going to do this?
What?
Why? Why does
He knows. I don't know why or how.
What
I have.
does it mean that he knows?
It means that he knows.
He knows that you're going to make that decision.
Yes.
You made the decision. What's the problem?
No.
He knew that you were going to make the decision before you made it, right?
Right.
So that his knowledge
means
is
you have to
existence
do it.
itself. You remember when we said in the beginning that the Buddhism is existence?
Right.
He doesn't possess it.
So if he knows it, that means that that's going to happen. That's the mindset. He does the doing, and it's him doing it.
It must it must be. So therefore, this guy must. Whoever this guy is must.
What you were saying is he's created.
No.
Are you saying that he created that?
But that's not truly wanting to.
Are you
Because
saying?
it means that in some way it's determined by some existence already.
Are you saying that he
It's some reality which is
created?
already making this to
That
be
he
what it
created
is.
that he created that Behira? Are you saying that he created that Behira? That future, your future Behira has an essence and a reality? Is that what you're saying? Is it that created thing, which you're going to choose in theoretical terms?
Well, it is a created thing. Obviously, he gave you Bechira. But the important thing is, how does Bechira go outside of his knowledge?
Okay.
If his knowledge is existence itself, you see, if for him to know means knowing is being.
It's like a controlled knowing.
Yeah, it's more than knowing. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, remember, you see, it depends on our first share. Remember, we said the Buddhism is being, he is existence itself, which means. It is. It means it is already. It is. Exactly. So therefore, how are you free to choose which way you want to go? You must will according to what is. So it's not too willing. It's not too
But if
free.
you didn't want to do that, he wouldn't think that.
What?
No. Then you would know it. You don't want to do it.
You're already going in a circle.
No, you can almost have to willing. He is. So therefore, you can't. It's not free anymore. You can't go in which direction you want because there's an existence which is demanding you go by existence.
Who picked the direction?
Who?
Hashem picked it himself?
What?
That's the question.
Yes. He picked it by knowing what you're going to do. In effect,
You know what you're going to do. Who started it?
What?
Okay. Who started
The
it?
Buddhism started.
He started what? He said, you're going to do this, and then you do it.
Yes, so you must do it.
So he made the decision. Somebody made a choice.
Yes,
Hashem-
Okay, so that's the question.
Made the choice?
Yes.
How does-
He makes the choice because when he knows what you're going to do, it means it is. It is.
So I think what you're asking
Can't
is
deviate.
which happened first, his knowing or your deciding?
No,
His knowing happens first.
Okay, but we question is that's not the true Behira. That's the
Yes.
question. That is the question.
Yes.
It's not true Behira.
That's right. So therefore, how do you wind up doing anything free? He knows what's going to be in the future, and his knowing is. So how do you have any free will?
Okay.
You see the clip?
Yes.
That's the question of Yediyim Bechira. The answer to that, who can answer that?
I can attempt to.
Wait a minute. Hold on. I want you to think for a second. You have enough information that not only answer the thing really, but to answer why we can't answer that.
That's all I can answer. We can't answer the thing
Except for the ones doing that. Think for a second. It's really an old question reshaped into new form. It has new clothes on it.
It's a question.
If we've seen this thing before, no.
No, it's an
You've
older
seen this
question.
before, except it has new clothes on.
It's
That's
the
why
only
you don't
question.
recognize it. You don't recognize it. It's a new style.
It's the
That's
same.
why.
We've only
But
had
it's the same.
one question.
It's the same body. You know,
So far we've only had one.
the same body. You remember what question we had? But it's in a different.
It gets
It's a
back to
question of
like
how can
Einar
Hashem
Mivada-
exist besides
It's
being.
it. And how can an Einar Mivada have a Zulasa? So far we've only had that one
Remember that?
question.
And it's a question of how do you separate anything from the Banisham? If the Banisham is pure existence, right? And nothing can be outside of him. So how is it possible to have a self which is aware of him, is outside of him? You see, that's number one. How can you have a free will outside of him? If we say Einoid Mavadoi, Einoid Mavadoi means pure existence. That's why there's Einoid Mavadoi. He is existence itself, so nothing can be outside of him.
Yeah,
So therefore, you can't have a self outside of him, you can't have free will outside of him. So it's the same answer that you can give with a self, you give with free will. Do you understand it's the same?
Yeah.
It's the same Torah. It's just like the self is out. To whatever degree the self is separate from him, to that degree, it's Bechira is separate from the Banisham and can will beyond him.
Even if he knows
That
about it, it doesn't make a difference.
Exactly.
It doesn't affect it.
Exactly. Just like his existence, he allows another existence which is outside of him in a way, even though he is pure existence itself. So he allows another will to be, even outside of his will.
Just like we don't understand how he created a separate self, we cannot. Just as we don't understand how he created a separate self, we cannot understand the free will and the existence.
Yes.
That's true.
So the answer is a different answer. It's not the same. So we had two questions tonight, two separate things. First of all, how does the Rebbeinu Shalom know the future? And we examined that in the relationship between time to existence. And we said that the Rebbeinu Shalom knows the future because he connects to some non-existent in our way, in some way. That's one thing. And the second thing we discussed was, what is the nature of Bechir itself? We said it's ashpah from one way to the other. So therefore, since reality does not exist in the next second, Bechir is shaping it. Not only is it being created the next second, but it's being shaped by us the next second. So we understand more clearer what Bechir does to reality. And then the third thing, we discussed the question of how could the Rebbeinu Shalom know something and allow you free will. We explained what the question was. That means his knowing is being. So how does it allow a freedom outside of his being? And we answered that by saying that's the old problem of separate individuation. How could anything be individuated from him?
Why do you say necessarily that his knowing becomes being? What did you say the other way?
Because remember what we said, what did we say the Rebbeinu Shalom wants fundamentally?
Exactly.
What is the Rebbeinu Shalom?
He's everything, right?
No, he's not everything. That's not everything.
That's pantheism right there.
No, that's not the answer. The answer is he is existence itself.
Right.
That is the answer.
He is.
So what? So you're saying there must be something outside of his existence that
you never get away with that in
Yes, now is that possible? How could something be outside of his is, which is free from is?
All right. That's what you said, that there's a...
The only thing outside of is...
So therefore, if the Rebbeinu Shalom knows something, it's part of is. I-S.
That's outside.
So how... Yeah, no.
Right, okay, yeah, right.
So how could something be outside of that is? He knows what you're going to do. If he knows a year from now what you're going to do, that's part of the is. So how could you be free to do what you want?
So the answer is that's also part of what you never studied.
In whatever way he achieves an individuation himself from him, in that way he achieves a total freedom.
But in other words, we still do have though the Bechir.
Yes,
sure, because sense.
What? Because it says Hakodah Yishamayim Chutz Yishamayim.
And that's true.
Chutz means, what does Chutz mean? Chutz means to whatever degree it's outside. To that degree, it means chutz.
You could say the same thing. The same way that he knows what we're going to do. It's the same way that he has a connection with us, even though we're not part of him. We're not.
Yes.
Right. That's the same. We didn't ask that though. Like why? How could Hashem? If it's not part of him, why does he know about us?
That's the old question.
Why does he know about us?
The same question.
Yeah.
We didn't even ask that.
How does he know what?
How does he know about us? The same way you're asking, how does he know what we're going to do?
It's a kasha going the other way. How can we be separate from him? And once we're separate from him, how does he know about us? Yeah. It's right.
Well, that's right. Why isn't there a two-way Hester? It's the same question.
Yeah.
How can you be a separate self and you have to be and exist? Even thing it's not exactly.
How does the Rebbeinu know non-God?
Yeah.
That's a different question.
Not only how, in what way does he know?
Well, but we don't know that. But because the way he allowed to be a self, that he has a connecting point between this allowing himself and himself.
Him.
Like in some way, it still is connected.
Yeah, we don't understand.
So in some way, the Bechira is also connected.
Wow.
It's an old
Of course, it's the same. It's honestly.
It's an invisible.
We're not going to get another question to the whole thing.
You know, we always keep on coming up to the border, and we stop at the border.
Of course, because
we stop at the border. Why do I go into some of these things? Because, like I say, it's it's not difficult to get a good grasp of these inyanim. It's really not that difficult. You have to work a little for it, but you will get a good grasp of these things. And so that when people, for yourself, you should understand, that there's a reason for what goes on, and that it makes sense. It's not just crazy, these questions can be answered in a way. You see, it's not just forget about it. It's great. They can be answered intelligently. You see, by knowing why they cannot be answered. But to know why they cannot be answered is to know the difference between us and the Rebbeinu Shalom. Clearly, that's what we know. You see, it's the idea itself. It's a knowledge of the difference of two things, which is a level of Yediyah.
Well, how much can you really accept this as reality? This is all abstract, really, for us, isn't it? I mean, there are people that live their whole lives, intelligent people who don't come across this.
Yeah.
You don't think so?
And therefore what? Well, how do they what?
How does it become part of your reality? It's still part of that thinking thing. Abstract, yeah, it's nice.
Oh, you mean how do you? Look, okay, that's a good question. And since we're
How do you relate
give
to
over here, we can talk about that. Essentially, you're saying, what can all this information do to me to make me to a bigger Yesh Shamayim? That's what you're saying. How does it translate to Simon Maisa? Right? Who wants to answer that?
Well, so now you know that you have a true will. Now it's really up
Well,
into
I don't
your
know.
hands.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
All
you
this
do.
who wants to answer that? Who wants to answer? What does all this information do, really? What is it really supposed to do, in a sense, at least up to now?
Gives you more Yerushalayim.
How? What does it do, really? It gives you more Yesh Shamayim? How?
Well, first of all, you know how what the whole purpose of the creation was,
It makes sense.
and then you know the problems of the creation. Then you know the problems of the creation, and you know the problems why we have to go through this world, and what the purpose for the person is on this world.
And once we know the nature of choice,
And you know what the and you also know what the rewards are.
So it does several things. What you're saying, number one, that first of all, it tells you who the Buddhism is. By knowing what
the object
by knowing who he is not, and to know when we understand how we are different from him, we begin to know who he is in a sense. What this it tells it this whatever he is incredible. This is absolute malchus. This is what an emes melech is. This begins to show what you so emes. When you sit in the daven, you're talking to this being. You know, that's who you're talking to. You know. And if you just but think on some of these ideas right before you daven, which a person is supposed to do, you know, before a person davens, he should take out 10 minutes and just think, who am I about to talk to? I'm talking to someone. Who am I about to talk to? You will daven differently. You cannot but daven differently, really. You know what I mean? If you think about it. All of us don't daven that way because we don't always think about it. You know, we don't take out, you know, it's at the Hasidim Yishenim, you take out an hour before. Don't do it. What do you think they will think about an hour before? What they really will think about is really very simple, among other things. But one of the things they will think about is who am I about to talk? Let's name me a talk on me. Now, give yourself 10 minutes before each tefillah. Now, you may, normally, most people say, well, I mean, let's name, no. How am I supposed to know? Well, after 6 weeks, you should be knowing now. You have no excuse anymore. Really. I mean, I hate to say it.
That's what you told us in the first year when I asked him.
You are now all, like it says, Hillel Mr. Mechayev all the Aniyim. You know? Because when all the Aniyim get up to the Shemayim, they say, the Banishim says, why didn't you learn? And all the Aniyim say, how can I learn? How to make a panasa? So the Banishim says, Hillel Yochiach. No, what about Hillel? Right? Here's a man who's a Madik Ani, look at the Madik Nefesh. You know? Now, you can be sure about one thing. When you get up to the Shemayim after 20 years, you will not be able to defend yourself anymore on that.
And we fell into this when I asked him from the first year, Amuna Pshuta, and he said that now that you know such a thing exists, you have no choice anymore.
And let's go further now. Talking about Dallas, why should you daven now after learning Halacha Pshuta? The Mura goes on over there to say, why?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question, you know?
You're supposed to, the Gemara mentions in Brachos that how many people used to meditate before they daven, okay? Put it that way.
Yeah,
Shuachas, whatever that Shuachas means.
Yeah, right, whatever it means.
How can you daven without it?
The Gemara also goes on to say that you should not get up to daven only from Halacha Pshuta, from learning Halacha Pshuta. How does that, how does that fit into it?
Your mind shouldn't be involved in this calculation and that.
Halacha Psuka, it means from Torah. Shouldn't go to Tefillah, Elam B'derch B'terch Divrei Torah. That's what it means. Halacha Psuka or Divrei Torah?
No, you shouldn't. They're two different concepts.
Because you shouldn't think about it. You shouldn't think about it. You should come to a final psak. That's what it says.
You shouldn't be involved with pink pockets, so that just reinforces. That is just reinforcing what we are saying here. Now, also the pasuk Shavitza Hashem Nagisomet now really makes a lot of sense, and you know, but you have the will in your hands, the Bechira. That means that you should, before you do something, you should know that.
Yeah, all that's Nagisomet, the least B'terch. Look, who could be Mekayim the Talmud? Only I told you.
Yeah, but I'm saying, you know,
right. But Halavai should be Mekayim before you daven. Now we explained in a couple of shurim back what Shavitza Hashem Nagisomet, the concept of Dvekis, which is an actual perception of the Banishim in a way. I mean, in that way, that's a very high madrega. But what I'm simply saying to you, if you want to know what then the Maisa, if you really want to be over it and work yourself, you now have the information that you can use to sit down 10 minutes before you daven and think of who you're about to daven to. And I can guarantee you, if you take out that time, it will make a radical difference in your davening, in an incredible way. And if you do that, you will see other things. It will begin to make a radical difference in your life. You cannot do that. You cannot sit down 10 minutes before each tefillah and think on these things without it affecting your life. You cannot. And you will do it, and you will see what I'm talking about. It will begin to make a substantial difference in your Yerushalayim Bechlal. You see, because the reason is the following. You see, it always says it says basically the way to mechazik the pnimius is through the chitzonius. You see, it really works through there. The chitzonius is more the pnimius, and the way to mechazik a pnimius is through the chitzonius. It works two different ways, both ways. What do I mean? If you have these hasagas, let's say, to leave these hasagas in your brain and go home, you'll get hasagas, so they'll do something to you now. They'll create certain machshavas, certain understanding of the Bunny Shalom. But you go through your daily life and so on, and that's the end of it. You come back here next week, you're here for to blow your mind the next week, and each week you blow your mind in a different way. Okay, fine, if I may use that expression. You see, but that's the whole thing. If you want to really begin to filter this kind of use of remus, which you get by hasaga into hagosha, you have to do something l'maisa, which is consistent with that hasaga. You know what something l'maisa is? Tefillah. What you do is think about these things 10 minutes before, you see, and then start to daven. Mitoich these hasagas. You see, what will slowly happen is that l'maisa, the hasaga will begin to filter down into your hagosha, and you begin to experience this Vegas that we're talking about in some of these things. Okay? That's technique number one. This is what I've told you is mamash a technique. If you want to achieve a certain level of embassy Yerushalayim, I'm talking about real Yerushalayim, begin to work on the midah of Dalef Ne'miyat Tomed. How do you work on it? You have the kelim now. You have the ability. Whether you will do it or not depends on your bechira.
It's easier to do this before Tefillah than before Naveirah, for example.
You can't do the affair.
That would be the best one. 10 minutes before
What
Naveirah.
you're saying is Mishunah. The truth of the matter is the following. The truth of the matter is this. That it's very hard to do it before Naveirah. Why? Because it says because the whole clear of the Sitra Achra is to enter into Fishtus, so you don't think of Dalat Nimi Atamid. Although the Pikyover says so it's not to it also says, but it attacks it another way. His Takabah says, what do you call it, main bottom, and which is one of the things also. But the truth of the matter is, forget about Chatvaim. That's two things. When you're about to do a chet and you do it, have a nice time. However, okay? No, leave on tape. However, I say the following. Why? Because the thing is this: the whole object in Yerushalayim is not to get into the ring. The Yetzer Hara is a boxer. He's a world heavyweight champion. Now, you're a guy who comes along, and someone goes over to you and says, here's a clue. I want you to go into that ring, and I want you to fight him. You take one look at the guy in the ring there, and you said, it's crazy to see. Yeah, I'll be out. So the guy says, fine, but you must do it. You must, in some way, be victorious over him. So Sheikh there says, okay, get into the ring, and he's flattened. That's the end of it. The object is not to get into the ring. The object is to stay out of it and let the boxer just move around continuously and wear himself out. That is the way the avoid is done. So, you don't, before you do the Vera and the impulse is there, and there at the battle, okay, what you should do is, don't work to try and remove Chatoyim mitoich, battling the Chatoyim directly. Try and be Ma'ba Yerushalayim in doing mitzvahs. You see what I'm saying?
That's what isolates you.
You need the Chatoim go for the time being. Work on the mitzvahs.
Right. Put
substance into your mitzvahs, and the Pneumius will begin to hit the Chatoim from the underside.
That will keep the spit out.
That's right. It'll begin. That's right. It'll begin to keep the ruach